welcome back to See and Free Studio. This is Jennifer Longyen, and this is where you come to find out what makes you unique, special, and different. Today, I am actually joining you from my actual studio in my backyard in Los Angeles, instead of in the studio where I normally am. And I am super excited to have somebody join me all the way from Atlanta. Let me tell you about Marica Slaughter. She's the founder of Raw5Gear, a clothing line created to promote recognition and equality for women athletes. As a former athlete herself, Marica understands the valuable lessons that come from playing sports, but also the disparities women in sports face. Through Raw5Gear, Marica is focused on creating opportunities that help push through those boundaries. She's also director of design operations at MailChimp and mom to three incredible boys with her wife, Jennifer. Please welcome Marica. How are
How are
you?
you? I'm good. I'm doing really good.
Yeah. How is Atlanta, my former hometown where I got to meet you years ago?
I know, I miss you. Well, it's a bit rainy out today, but Atlanta's Atlanta.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's a wonderful place to raise a family, but you do deal with all of the weather and the traffic and everything else that comes along with it.
Yeah, yes,
Well,
yes,
Marika,
yes.
I want to ask, like, what are you up to these days? Tell everybody, what you're working on, what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about Raw 5 Gear.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as you mentioned, I like to tell the story that I spend my days being the director of design operations at MailChimp. And what that means is I get the privilege to oversee a team of program managers and producers who are supporting a design organization within MailChimp, and really just formalizing ways that we can create space for that team to deliver on the work that they're doing and do that effectively and in a quality way. So that's the exciting part of my day. And then at night and whenever I get time on the weekends, I am actually spending that time working on Raw 5 Gear, and further developing, creating lines, and really creating connections in the community, to further evolve what I want to do there.
That's great. Well, tell us a little bit about it. So you were an athlete. You are an athlete still, no doubt. But I'm guessing competitively. What brought your attention to the need to draw out a focus on women's sports and some of the disparities in women's sports?
Yeah. So I played basketball at Georgia State, and I finished my career in 2002. And at that time, I really had this longing to, do something creative. My background is in um, studio production and just the creative space in general. And I was looking for a way that I could merge my two worlds of just being this creative, but also extending my time that I've spent in sports and sharing some of the learnings, but also supporting those women that I may have played with and the group to come up thereafter. And so I actually created Raw 5 Gear in 2013, and ended up having to put it on pause due to some life circumstances, and actually made it a goal of mine, very goal oriented. And so I set out in 2020 to actually bring it back in a new way that really painted a picture of the disparities that were happening to women in sports, and doing that in a creative way through various apparel, but also adding on and being able to give contributions back to organizations that support young athletes and women in sports. And that's really near and dear to my heart. I look to ways that I can share my learnings that I've learned over my lifetime, and that plays a part in both my career as well as that I had as an athlete, as both and a professional. So that's really the gist of it. Is me. It was a way for me to have an outlet of something that I can do, but it was an opportunity for me to seed back into a younger group that was coming up, and really where I spent the majority of my life is playing sports.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. I didn't know, when you started it or why you started it, but I have one of your T-shirts, and I love it.
I
I
love
wear it
it.
all the time. Well, I'm super happy for you that you kind of reinvigorated that effort. And in your story, you talked a little bit about I'm goal oriented, I'm creative, you're
Hmm.
competitive as well from a sports perspective. So I'm really curious to hear from your perspective, what's that thing that drives you, that unique, special, and different for Marika? I want to hear your story.
Yeah, I love this question. When you sent it, I was like, again, I have a lot of who I am and what makes me unique, special, and different came out and even thinking about how I would answer this question. And I polled a few people and I'm like, well, what do you think? And so um, I will say I am that. I think my superpower is being a connector, being a bridge builder. Naturally, having been a leader, I played point guard, and so I think I've developed a lot of qualities in understanding how to lead and connect people to bring ideas and ways of winning and being successful to life. And so I think within that, I'm able to what makes me unique, special, and different is I am able to, what we would say, I'm a very thoughtful leader, very contemplative and, thoughtful about how I approach things, but also just remain steady. I'm that steady person that I think it does well from a leadership perspective that I don't get too overly reactive to a situation. I'm just really thoughtful about it and approach it in a way that makes me feel like I have the right information to do that. And I think that plays out both in again how I approach the Raw5Gear business, but also how I lead my team um, at Mailchimp. So I think those are the qualities that have stood out in my perspective, as well as some of the things that I've asked folks about. And at the end of the day, Jen, I think I just want to be able to, I say what I want my legacy to be is not just the things that I've been able to achieve in my career, but the influence I've had on others that have helped them achieve things and that have been passed on to others. And sort of, I think your legacy comes from the longevity of the things that you instill in other people.
That's very true. Well, the fact that when you polled other people, they told those stories to you and reminded you of what makes you unique, special, and different, suggest you already doing a lot of work around leaving a legacy and an impression on people. So that's in itself a real testament. So tell me, who of those people knew you when? Did you know this about yourself when you were younger? Did this emerge as like you said, you played point guard and you went into college and played competitive basketball? But when did you discover this about yourself?
Um, this is a really great question. I think I discovered this. I actually fought it for a long time in middle school. A story that stands out to me when I think about my leadership qualities is I was asked to play point guard. I wanted to play shooting guard, but my coach pulled me to the side and said, "The people look up to you and they follow you, and you have the ability to lead this team to great things. I want you to be a leader." And I, I fought it with everything I could. But it was just so natural over time. And if I look back over the course of my career, both as an athlete as well as a professional, I've always been placed in those situations, whether I wanted to or not. And I think that's telling, or at least I love to say, you're put in the right positions that are meant for you or for you to find blessings in or bless others. And so um, I think that's what holds true to like some of the stories I've heard, and I found a lot of that to be true through my conversations and just talking about Raw5Gear and sharing stories of my experiences as an athlete. I've had coaches and other teammates and folks chime in and say, yeah, you were a great leader, you were a warrior, you did this and that, and at times it was almost like surprising, like I've forgotten. But I think because everyone probably deals with imposter syndrome, and that plays a part in in many ways, especially over the past course of the year of how you've perceived your performance or the ways you go about doing things. But it's through those stories that I'm thankful for, that continuously remind me of who I am, and again, ground me and going back to the things that I know that I do well and how I approach things. So
That's great. Well, in imposter syndrome, people are really talking about that a lot more now, and saying, sometimes it feels like I don't belong, or I don't value my own worth in certain settings and environments.
mm,
And it that's one of the things I'm hoping, that we can draw out of people when we talk about USDs is like, no, the one thing that you can't possibly be an imposter at is being yourself. You're the only one that can play that role. So, I think it's really good that you reconnect and ground yourself and who you are and what makes you you, and what makes you such a great
mhm,
leader. I love that story. And I wonder, for you, you talked about being even keel. Like, so it's not just that you're a leader, and it's not just that you want to make, a lasting impact on people, but you also do it with some calm and
mhm.
some confidence that you'll make it through. Have you been challenged in a way that made you question that, to say, maybe this isn't the one that I'm going to make it through, where I feel like I can lead others through this really challenging time? Has there been one of those moments that you especially remember?
Yeah, there's a couple stories. Well, one, I want to answer that first with saying, I think reflectively looking back, I think I went through at 17 years old, I tore my ACL and actually had to go through 9 months of learning to walk and play again. And I think at the time that was the hardest thing that I did not think I would make it through. But in doing so, it taught me a lot, and it really taught me how to persevere and overcome adversity. And I think that prepared me for things that I especially have dealt with over this past year. So I do think, I'm thankful for that, because there have been now times over the course of the past year where I've dealt with, am I going to be able to lead through this? Whether that be the extenuating circumstances that we've all dealt with in leading teams through change. Um, whether there's been certain things that have happened within the organization. I think there's just, when you work for a hyper growth company like MailChimp, you have to know that there's going to be that change management required every 3 to 6 months, maybe. And so um, that was something new for me that I had to deal with over the course of the past year that I'd not dealt with before. And I will say it was a season of exponential growth that it's almost like I I looking back would have wanted to go through, make sure I was prepared and had training and did this as thoughtful as I am. But now coming out on the other side, and it's shown me a lot about myself, revealed a lot about myself, about what I'm capable of. And some of that probably is derived from just those early days of being an athlete, and just knowing that you have to persevere even when you don't have all the tools you think you need at that moment.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think sometimes those early adversity moments, I actually treasure those. I don't know about you, but I'm sometimes glad I went through some of that stuff earlier in life, so that things like what have we've all experienced, the circumstances we find ourselves in. I don't think it's
Yeah.
easier, but I know I'm more resilient. I don't know if you feel the
Mm-hmm.
same, but I just feel like I've been through something similar, so I think we can make it through.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope people can tap into that and remember that for themselves. Well, speaking of,
Yeah.
leading a group of people. You've got three young men that you are raising. What is it that you're trying to impart on them as they're trying to navigate the world and probably deal with their own forms of adversity and challenges?
Yeah, my wife and I always say we're just trying to raise good humans, and
Yeah.
we want them to, they're they're a little sheltered. But middle school, we started middle school this year, and we're being exposed to lots. And so this is an opportunity for us to really guide them in how they're thinking about things and how they're approaching everything from schoolwork to interacting with new classmates, sports. We just try to impart on them some of the things that were instilled in us, and just make sure that we're raising good humans and hopefully getting them prepared for someone in the near in the future, not near hopefully, but in the future that they're just there's some funny stories we have about boys in general, but I think I hope we're just doing a good job, and we just try to every day to show them, we're both leaders in what we do day to day, and so we try to impart some of those skills on them and ways of thinking and how they approach life and schoolwork. But it
That's
gets
so cool.
interesting some days.
I know, and they have all different personalities too, right? Like, so you're managing. Talk about leadership. You have to really adjust. And I know I met your boys obviously when they were very young. At least you're the twins, and then obviously they've grown up. I mean, they're in junior high already. It's crazy to
Oh
think
yeah.
about. But I know that they're all very unique individuals in themselves, and so it's adapting your leadership style for the moment important. Yeah,
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We always say we're going from the day-to-day leadership job to actually it challenges us in more ways than it does at work sometimes.
no, it's true. It's true. Check yourself. Like, am I being a hypocrite? Would I do this to adults, or is this just to my kids? Well, I think that's wonderful. I mean, so what do they think about you're bringing awareness to the disparity in women's sports? Do they really understand that? Do you think they are able to comprehend kind of the message you have there and the awareness that you're trying to bring?
They do. They actually are really thoughtful and ask me how are things going with the business, and they're really intrigued by it. And they understand that I played sports, and that some of that women athletes face different things when it comes to a comparison to male athletes. Women make up more than 40% of collegiate athletes. Will just pinpoint that, but we only get potentially 4% of the marketing and the recognition that compared to male sports. And that's not to my brother played sports. I love sports in general of all types. But I do think, when you see numbers like that, I want to help in that way, and I want my boys to understand that in the one day in the future, maybe they can have a part in changing that story. And it's going to take time, and so starting that dialogue with them and that awareness, I believe, is just another way that I can do my part in helping change the future for young women athletes that are coming up.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, and it's gonna take the awareness of young men and men to honestly change some of that, right? And so it's really good that they understand that and they recognize the role that they play minimally in
Hmm.
understanding and then hopefully being part of the change. So that's fantastic. There's a part like that we do in all of our shows, and I know you said you've watched a few where I ask a random question, and so now is your chance to answer your random question. But you get to choose between 1 and 25, and I'll read the question to you. But I would love to see what number you want to choose.
I'm gonna go with 5. That's my solid, my jersey number, my life number.
Oh, that's great. So, what is your ultimate theme song and why?
Mm, 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 mm. Ultimate theme song. I love music in so many ways. I could go with my favorite Beyonce song here, or I could, uh,
Go with a couple. Listen, you're multifaceted.
what? Well, yeah, I'm gonna go with what we tell the boys, and they know this song dearly. "Who Runs the World," "Girls" by
Mm-hmm.
Beyonce.
Yep.
Is a tried and true song. But I also like, it just popped in my mind first as well. Fantasia has a song called "I Made It," and when things get hard for me sometimes, or you're going through something tough, it's just one that I like to pop on. And she's such a soulful singer, and the words are so they resonate so much to me that I'm just like, yes, every day, each and every day, every minute, I made it.
Yeah. That's great. That's it's such a perfect, well, theme songs. I mean, I'm a big fan of theme songs. Mine is Golden by Jill Scott. I don't know if you know that one. But that's like that
I do
power
know that.
song that I crank up to get me energized and going and excited. So yeah, and I love the Who Runs the World girls. It's fabulous, and even the video that she does for that's a great song. So
Hmm.
well, thank you for sharing. I mean, I
Yeah.
love kind of hearing that, especially as I think music, you talked about loving music. I mean, tell me, is that like a love as in playing music or just listening or experiencing music? What do you love about it?
I will say this. Music has always been the thing that touches my soul that I go to, like I said, whether it's a celebration song and I like to rap it in the shower or my car, or whether it's a Christian song or what have you. It's what gets me through, and I think it gets a lot of people through. And one of our twins actually can sing, and he's had no
Yeah.
training. And I tell him, I say, babe, you should want to share that gift with the world because music saves lives. And I truly believe
Yes.
that. And it's just always been, it's the one thing that I'm so thankful we have, because it probably has saved tons of lives through the words and the things um, that these artists share. So yeah, I love music.
That's fantastic. Well, I thank you. I love sharing stuff about people that just reconnecting and connecting in those ways. And our youngest likes to sing, so maybe we should get them together. Who knows where they could go with it?
Mm.
That would be super. I love that. Um, well, tell Jennifer we've got a plan for the boys at least. One of them, the two of them are going
I
to start a band.
I want to start a band. Let's do
No joke.
it.
Okay, sounds good. Um, so you talked about like impacting lives. You talked about leadership, and we've talked about bringing awareness to women's sports. I'm trying to do a lot more to bring awareness to different organizations. That's my small impact I'm trying to make with the show is highlight different organizations that are doing cool things and making a difference in the world. And you chose the Women's Sports Foundation, so I thought it would be great to tell everybody a little bit about it and, what do they do? What are they about? How do people get involved?
Yeah, and I found this as I was doing my research, and ways that I can give back, from a perspective of just running Raw5Gear. And Women's Sports Foundation was founded by Billie Jean King, and she is a phenomenal tennis player and a huge advocate of women and women in sports and women in leadership positions, because I think the same, what goes untold is the same things that athletes experience happens at the coaching level. And so we want to see more women not only playing sports but leading in sports and leading teams. And what they do is provide a lot of programming that give young girls and women athletes an opportunity to get fair and equitable programming. Big advocate of creation of Title IX. And if I don't know if everyone's following, but the things that were happening with the NCAA tournament last year, where there were inequities experienced by the women athletes, and the equipment and the accommodations that they were provided versus the male athletes, they led programming to get signatures to really have that report released and have some changes made. And so I just love what they're doing. I hope to be more involved in the future. But my way of contributing to change is not only by just creating this line, but also giving back to that organization in a way that further develops the things that they're doing.
That's great. Well, I want to encourage everyone to check them out, first of all. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can click on our QR code at the end of the show and it'll bring you right to the site. You can donate. That's obviously a major way to get involved, bring awareness, bring issues to the table where you see the disparity so that they can help and advocate. So thanks for bringing all the attention to it, and also through your company with Raw5Gear. And please buy from Marica's shop, because if you do that, she also gives back. So Marica, what's next for you? What's coming up?
You know, just trying to, I do a lot of, I really want to invest my time in giving back. And so trying to figure out new ways to, creative ways to do that. Thinking about new ways that I can collaborate and partner with either, high schools and different organizations that I've been a part of, again, to only not only elevate this messaging, but find opportunities to give back and feed into those programs as well. So, from my perspective, I'm always looking for ways that I can help others. And so I'll be doing a lot of that, whether that be in my day-to-day job or further progressing Raw5Gear.
Well, that's great. Well, I know that you're going to make an incredible difference as a leader, as a mother, as a wife, as a community member. I'm super honored to know you and have met you many, many years
Okay.
ago and stayed in touch. So I really want to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your story, telling us a little bit about you, and hopefully inspiring some people out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I love that you're doing this. I'm so glad that it's that I met Shannon years and years ago at Coca-Cola, and we were we were connected through that relationship, and just proud of you both and the things that you're able to do as well.
Thank you, Marika. We miss you. We'll have to come by
Miss
and see
you.
you if we make it back to Atlanta. Yes. Well, everyone,
Awesome.
that's a wrap for See and Free Studio. You can check us out at seeandfreestudio.com, YouTube. We're on Google, Amazon, Spotify. You can pretty much find us everywhere. We love to see you back every week. Please subscribe and see you soon.